and welcome to the Island Lamb, and I'm Diane, and this is episode 21. Spring has sprung. It surely has. So the last time I did a video with you, I was showing you the daffodils and talking about how the forsythias in bloom. And this whole island was covered in yellow. And just in a few weeks, we've gone from yellow to purple. So I have some beautiful lilacs that I just picked from my lilac bush. And lilac is a smell that I remember from my childhood when we were little and we were living in Newport. We had a magnificent lilac bush in our yard. And I just remember all our Easter photos and all our spring family photos were sort of staged around this beautiful lilac bush. So I have that smell in my psyche, in my DNA. So when we bought this house on Block Island and we moved here, it was one of the first things I did was to plant a couple of small, those little 1-gallon buckets of lilacs, and now I have a pretty healthy, mature lilac bush that just smells incredible. And the irises are starting to come up, and the azaleas and the rhododendrons, so we've gone from yellow to purple, and in a few short weeks we'll have all the colors of the rainbow blooming around here, as I'm sure you have in your backyard or in your neighborhood as well. So I mentioned in my last episode that I was going to the Art in Bloom event at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, Massachusetts with my mom and her garden club, and my sister-in-law and my mom and her garden club. And I mentioned that it was the Rhode Island garden clubs, but it's actually the garden clubs of New England that can participate in this event. And I have taken some photos of the masterpiece, the arrangement, in some cases maybe the write-up from the garden club, and I will include that at the end of this podcast, just in case you're not interested in that and you just want to watch the knitting. So it will be at the end, and I hope some of you will stay for that as well. It was an incredible day. It was a nice, easy bus trip into Boston. We hit no traffic. We arrived early. The museum is just beautiful. So these masterpieces that are part of the Art in Bloom are mingled in with the permanent collection. So some of the collection that I got to see beyond the Art in Bloom, I got to see a Monet, one of the water lilies. I got to see a Degas, a painting and a sculpture of one of the ballet dancers. And there was also, there's always an event going on, an exhibit. We didn't get into that exhibit. It was a Japanese exhibit. But throughout the main part of the museum, some of these masterpieces have been selected, including Egypt, in the Egypt wing where we got to see sarcophagus and an arrangement, a mask and an arrangement. So if you're interested in art and you're interested in a little bit of that experience, I would say check out the end of this video. I also mentioned that my mom would be coming back to Block Island, and I was hoping that she would do an interview with me where we could talk about her sewing history. However, we didn't get to that. We were very busy, so I brought a little piece of my mom with me into this video. This is one of the pieces that she has knit. And I'm including some photos and maybe a little video of me wearing this. I will tell you that my mom is much more petite than I am, and so she knit this for her body. And so it really looks wonderful on her. It's a stretch for me, it's a little short for me, but I just think it was still worth showing you how this looks. It's a gorgeous design. It's a Rosemary Drysdale pattern. And Rosemary Drysdale has been in the needlework, sewing, knitting industry almost all her life because her parents were tailors. She grew up in London. Her parents were tailors. Her grandparents were in the sewing world, and she left London and she came to the States, and she moved to Nantucket, one of the islands off the coast of Massachusetts, where she taught embroidery, and she's a pattern writer. She's got many books in embroidery and in knitting. So if you don't know Rosemary Drysdale, check her out. So this is a Rosemary Drysdale pattern. Now I will tell you this is an old pattern because these were from Mom's collection, 50 years of sweaters that I did a video with Mom in the beginning when I first started podcasting, and you saw this as one of those many older sweaters. So again, this is Rosemary Drysdale. It's called the Breezy V-neck Pullover. It was in a magazine called The Love of Knitting, Spring 2010. So when I went on to Ravelry, I saw the photograph, I saw the knitting book, but when I clicked on it, it didn't show that I could access it. So I think Mom has the magazine. I don't have the magazine. There were a few people, I think maybe 3 or 4 in the project notes who have made this. My main reason for showing this is because it's a spring summer knit. It's got some nice lace work on the bottom and on the sleeve, as a picot stitch on the V-neck. I know not all of us like to knit for spring and summer, but over the years I have found that I really enjoy that. And I enjoy wearing one of my knitted pieces on a summer evening or on a spring evening. So I will have another design that I'm going to talk about that is also a Rosemary Drysdale, and that pattern is published. So again, I don't know if you can find this. I'm going to say that right from the beginning, but if you have access to the Love of Knitting magazine, Spring 20, it's in there. It was a Taki, she recommended Taki Stacy yarns, cotton classic. I'm not sure what my mother used. By feeling it, I can tell it's definitely cotton. I think it's a mercerized cotton. It's soft. It's perfect for this kind of work. Again, a picot, some lace work, just a nice thing to think about, knitting for spring and summer. Okay, so on the mannequin is another great pattern for this time of year. You could wear this with just a tee underneath it. I made this for my mom, and she has worn it with a nice crisp white collar. So this is called the Tracery, and this pattern is a Noragone design. And I mentioned Noragone in several of my other podcasts because I featured this particular sweater, and it was in this booklet, which is a Berroco booklet, and this whole collection of patterns in here are Noragone. And this pattern, the Tracery, is on Ravelry, and I'm also including some photos of this from this particular booklet. So this called for Berroco Fuji, which is discontinued. However, this is made in a combination of yarns that I'm sure, as long as you got gauge, it would be lovely. It is a silk, cotton, rayon, viscose blend. The pattern gave an 18 stitch to 4 inch on a size 8 needle, 8 US for the main, and I think a 5 for the neckline. There's a number of yarns you could use to make this, as long as you got gauge. And one of the things I think I have really been learning and focusing on these past 2 years, maybe, especially this last year, is really, I thought I understood gauge. I've spent a lot of time working with gauge and swatching. But I'm learning more and more that you don't really need to match up the pattern with a yarn exactly to the gauge that the yarn and the pattern call for. We can play with size, and we can play with needle size. And as long as you like the fabric, as long as we like the fabric we're creating, we can use anything we want. I think that a good example of that is the ranunculus pattern. One of the most sold patterns on Ravelry, and I think one of the most made patterns. And that doesn't hold you to any gauge. It doesn't hold you to any needle size. It doesn't hold you to any size. So that is one of the things I've really learned. And when I get into my project on the needles, I'll go into that a little bit more. But this is just a lovely pattern. You've got some reverse. Is that reverse stock? I might have to put my glasses on now. Okay. It has reverse stocking knit down the sides. It is knit in pieces. It's bottom up. You start with some stocking knit. You work this beautiful lace pattern, which is not really difficult. Her patterns are very easy to follow. The sleeves, it's raglan. The sleeves are, added on, and then you seam down the sides. The pattern is going down the front and the back. I did use the yarn that the pattern called for because I had some. I had been using a lot of this Berroco Maya and Fuji during their heyday, and I had this in my stash. So beautiful color. You can just picture it on Mom. Mom looks great in all blues. And I'm going to make this again, I think, for myself at some point. I might even make it a little bit shorter. You'll see if you go onto Ravelry, and you see a lot of the people who have made it. Also in the, and I've taken some pictures of this too, but also the model, it's quite long, which is nice. But I think it would also be pretty if you, played a little bit and maybe excluded one of these and added some, I don't know. It might be fun a little shorter. That's what I'm thinking for myself anyway. Okay, so I also wanted to let you know I finished the baby sweater. So this is the Festival sweater by Petite Knits. Sweet, sweet pattern. It's all over Ravelry. It's all over Instagram. I used Walmart 100% cotton yarn called Mainstays, which is made for them. The cotton is made in Turkey. It's top down. It's got a double neckline. The yarn is nice and has a lot of give, nice stretch. A very fun bobble that is created over 2 rows. I really enjoyed making this, and I can see myself using this bobble stitch, you know, maybe as a detail here and there on other projects. So I do recommend this. This is the Festival Petite Knit. I'm getting ready to ship this off to my niece, and you could do this in, so the pattern shows it in a main color and 2 alternating colors for the little bobble pattern. I could have done that, but I liked the simplicity. I could just picture this with a little pair of baby jeans or a little calico blue dress. So you could, again, make this your own by using many different colors, certainly something that you have in your stash. Okay, so what do I have on the needles? This is a Rosemary Drysdale design. This pattern is available for sure on Ravelry. It was in the Vogue Spring Summer 2019 issue, and this is what the cover looked like. And I'm showing you some photos right now of the picture, the photo from the pattern. And I'm gonna go into acquisitions in a minute, but I had gotten this awesome buttercup yellow Valley yarn called Leveret. This is 70% Pima cotton and 30% linen. I don't feel the stiffness of the linen. It is very soft. And so I have completed the back. See a little, a little similarity here. So this is called the Eyelet top. It's bottom up. It's in pieces, but it's only 2 pieces because the back, so this is the back, and of course the front is going to, you know, come in a little lower. You're going to stitch these shoulders together, and then you're going to pick up and you're going to make just a little rib cuff. So I'm showing you those photos so you can see it finished. So this has been so much fun because as those forsythia and the daffodils were blooming, and I went on the web's sale list to see what was going on, I saw this yarn. I saw buttercup yellow. I can't wear all yellows, just like I can't wear all oranges. I have very cool tones. I am not an autumn, I'm a winter. So if it's a nice true yellow, I can wear it. So I just thought this would be really pretty with white jeans, with blue jeans, with a summer skirt. So I am cruising along. This is the front. So what's really fun about this is it's easy. It looks complicated, just like this looks complicated, but it's not. So you've got your rib, you've got some stocking knit, you've got a purl row on the knit side, you've got a yarn, you've got a knit 2 together yarn over, which is creating this little eyelet. Then you're back to your stocking knit, you've got that purl stitch, more stocking knit, another purl, a purl row, and then the only difference between this eyelet and this eyelet is it's a yarn over twice. You put the yarn over twice, and you're so on the reverse side you're going to knit into that yarn over twice, and that's it. I mean, how simple could that be for a fun little summer top? You don't have to make sleeves. You're literally just going to pick up and do a little cuff, and I'm hoping I'm going to be wearing this pretty soon because it's going fast. I'm on a size, let's see, I am on a size 6. Am I on a 6? I'm on a 5, which is a 3.75 millimeter. And here's where I wanted to talk about gauge again. So let me find this pattern. This pattern called for, let's see. I mean, yes, this pattern called for Koigu, I'm not sure how to spell that, but you know this yarn, Koigu, Koigu wool designs in their Carmen silk. So that's the yarn it called for. And it said to use a 1 size needle, which is a 6. You don't have to change needle size even for the ribs, so you're just on 1 needle. It called for a 6, or that's a 4 millimeter. And it said your gauge would be 24 stitches to 4 inches and 34 rows to 4 inches, or 10 centimeters. So when I bought this yarn, I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I bought 8 skeins. It has, 109 yards. It was on the big anniversary sale list. It's probably still there. I also bought some in a steely gray, which I'll show you a little bit later. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do a lot. I would have to be, you know, short sleeve, but that's what I had in mind. And so when I saw this pattern, okay, so here's the tag. The tag says 5 stitches to the inch on a US 5. So I said, you know what? I'm just not even going to think about what this tag says. I'm going to do some swatching with what the pattern says, because that's really where we're trying to get. And of course, there's quite a few sizes, and I did not want this to fit too snugly, but I also didn't want it to be oversized. I've got a skirt that I'm thinking about wearing this with. I don't necessarily want it over my whole, you know, hip and bottom of, you know, when I'm wearing white jeans. I wanted something a little, not cropped, but not too long. So I just started swatching. So I started swatching with the recommended needle size in the pattern, and I had less stitches to the inch than I needed, so that I modified my needle size. I wanted to use this yarn, and I couldn't see any reason why I shouldn't. And I also, you know, measured myself, measured one of my favorite loose fitting summer weight garments and how long I wanted it to be, and I easily got to a fabric that I like. And as you can see, you know, okay, let's just say across the widest part of my bust, okay, right? That's where we really got to think about it, in the shoulders. It's going to be fine. I didn't want it too loose. I didn't want those eyelets to pull. So gauge is for us to interpret, I think. The yarn companies have to give us a feel for what this yarn is capable of. The pattern has to give us something to go by to fit the schematic with the yarn they recommended for the pattern. But when we start using our own yarns and we start playing, it is up to us to determine our fit, what we want for the fabric. Maybe a pattern may have a very tight fabric weave, but maybe you want that looser. So you may change your size in order to get the fabric you want. So that's something I've spent some time thinking about this year. I used to really, really think I had to get what the yarn gauge said. I think it's more important that you look at the pattern and the yarn and the design when you're making those choices. So anyway, that's my opinion. That's what I've been discovering. Okay, so that's what's on the needle. So where are we now? And I said that was a Rosemary Drysdale design, published in the Vogue Spring Summer 2019 magazine. It's called the Eyelet Top. And the pattern is called the Eyelet Top, and it is on Ravelry. Okay, so talking about yarn acquisitions in my Webs haul. So I mentioned to you last episode, I had gotten the catalog, plus I went online. I looked to see what they had going on. So they had this leveret, and they also had it in this gray. And this gray color is called Stone. And I don't typically wear a lot of gray, but I was thinking about something, you know, lacy or eyelet-like, something summery, maybe a V-neck with a nice chunk of silver, like a pretty silver pendant maybe, and some silver earrings. Again, I told you I bought a linen skirt. It's kind of a creamy white with a little bit of a gray, very, very little bit of a gray going through it. And I thought, well, you know, for the price, this, like I said, this was on sale, 109 yards on a skein. And I'm very glad I bought it now that I know how beautiful it feels and how beautiful it works up. So I have a V-neck in mind, a summer tee. I also picked up, this is like, oh, so happy about this. Again, this is Valley Yarn, and it's called Hardwick. It's 50% alpaca, 35% wool, 15% silk. It's to be worked up on a 7/9 needle, US 7/9, and there's 164 yards on a skein, 100 grams. It's a little thick and thin. So remember the sweater, my favorite sweater that I had, the Catastrophe. It caught on fire. It had a lot of acrylic in it. I was brokenhearted. It was a Sidar denim chunky. I'm thinking in the fall, I'm going to give this a shot. I bought quite a bit of it. It was on sale as well. I think the combination of the alpaca, the wool, and the silk is going to be soft enough to give me that soft experience that I want, and yet strong enough with the silk that hopefully it won't be too heavy and it won't stretch. So stay tuned. I'm going to start working on this probably in the fall. The other, okay, so another yarn I bought, and in one of my episodes, I made that beautiful red Lori pullover that had the twisted rib and it had baubles on it. And I said I had bought this yarn called Northfield when I was at Webb's, when I went up last October. It's 70% merino, 20% baby alpaca, and 10% silk, 124 yards on a skein. It is, there's the label. It's gorgeous. When I was working on that red sweater, I was just in heaven with the yarn. The whole time I was knitting on it, I was like, I've got to buy more of this yarn. So this, do I know the color? Let's see if they gave us the color. It's called Deep Water, which is number 12. And I also bought, sight unseen, I had to kind of look at the colors online, Southampton, which is Valley's 72% kid mohair and 28% mulberry silk. And this color is, I know it's here. I have to tell you the name of the color. I think it's blue. No, maybe, I think it's blueberry. Oh, yeah, I think it's blueberry. Maybe it was on the invoice. It doesn't appear to be on the label. But look at these two colors together. So I bought quite a bit, and I'm thinking a sweater, I don't know what, but something for the fall and winter. So another project. And then the last thing I bought is by Jojo Land, Harmony. It's 100% merino wool. It's lace weight. There are 880 yards, 800 meters on this 50-gram ball. Okay, so the gauge says US 0, 2 millimeter, but I don't know. I've done some shawls, lace shawls on a size 6 or a 5 with these beautiful lace weights. Look at the colors. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Maybe I'll carry it with something else, maybe some mohair, maybe I'll just make a lace, but I had to have that, and I'm just going to put that in my stash. Someday something will get my attention, and I'll be happy to pull this out. So I had a wonderful, when I came home from being off island at the museum, this order had come in, and my husband put it in this beautiful basket and had it waiting for me. So I'm showing you a little picture of what I came home to. I was just like, oh, heaven. And I had hoped I was going to stop at my local yarn shop on the way, but we had a weather problem and we were afraid we weren't going to, the ferries were going to get canceled. So I said to my mom, we better just get on the ferry and give it up. It was local yarn shop day. And I was, I wanted to get into Mermaid's Pearl, my local yarn shop, but it wasn't worth it. So when I came home and there was that beautiful basket of yarn, I was like, okay, I'm happy. All right. So I think that's all I have for you today. I hope you're enjoying all the beauty that spring is bringing us. It's just been magnificent. I had great luck using those homemade cleaners that I talked about. I had found the recipes on Scandish Home, which is that podcast I mentioned in my last episode. My windows are sparkling. Everything is nice and clean. I feel so good that I'm not using chemicals, that I'm using good for me, good for the environment products. So that was a success as well. So if you want, stay for some photos of the Art in Bloom event that happened at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And I hope to see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for joining me. Bye.